Meet Carlos Lima. At 45, he had built a tech empire from scratch, a successful life that many envied. But behind all this grandeur, there was a silent and cruel price: loneliness. No family, few friends, and a reputation as a business genius. Yes, but also as a ruthless man. That day, Carlos's patience, already so thin, was at its limit. "Unacceptable," he growled, staring at a resume in front of him as if it were an enemy. "Completely unprofessional." Marcia, his executive secretary for 15 long years, knew every nuance of those outbursts. She stood firm at the door, a rock in the face of the hurricane. The woman didn't even call to cancel. "Marcia!" Carlos shouted, his voice thick with disbelief. It was a marketing manager position. A simple courtesy call would be the bare minimum of decency. Marcia, with the wisdom that experience had given her, ventured, "Maybe something happened, Carlos." Miss Santos' references were exemplary. He snorted in disbelief. "Something more important than an interview at Almeida Tech? I doubt it." That empire, built with so much sacrifice, seemed to be the center of his universe, and any disrespect towards it was a personal offense. Running his hand through his hair, in a gesture of irritation and defiance, he decreed, "Give me her number. I want to tell you personally that this kind of lack of professionalism doesn't work here." With a sigh that carried the weight of her resignation, Marcia handed over Carlos Santos's information. Carlos dialed, each number dictated by anger, mentally rehearsing the cutting words he would hurl at the insolent girl. But fate, with its peculiar irony, had other plans. The phone rang a few times before a small, innocent voice answered on the other end. "Hello," the child said. Carlos hesitated. The world around him seemed to go silent. Disconcerted, he asked, his voice a little softer than he intended, "I'm trying to reach Carlos Santos." The answer came, simple and heartbreaking. "Mommy can't come to the phone. She's crying in the bathroom." At that moment, something tightened in Carlos's chest. A sharp twinge, foreign to him. "Is she okay?" he asked, the billionaire's authority disappearing, replaced by an almost paternal concern. "She's sad because she missed the important meeting today," the small voice explained, with such pure honesty that it dismantled every barrier Carlos had. That childlike tone, free of filters, continued to reveal a harsh reality. "But we didn't have any food, and she had to go to the donation place before it closed. She said her job would fix everything." Each word was like a soft but accurate blow to Carlos's empire's certainties. He felt the air leave his lungs, the sharp speech he had prepared vanishing like smoke. The anger that had dominated him seconds before evaporated, and in its place, a strange emptiness settled in, mixed with a pain he didn't recognize. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any stories like this. His voice, once so authoritative, was now just a whisper. "What's your name?" he managed to ask. "Carol. I'm 6 years old," the child replied, and Carlos's world stopped. A heavy silence hung in the air before the small voice returned, curious and full of overwhelming innocence. "Are you the important man Mommy was going to meet? She has your picture on her computer." Carlos, still processing, confirmed, "Yes, I'm Carlos Lima." It was then that the bombshell, the revelation that would shatter his entire existence, came. The little girl gasped, and in her voice, a mixture of astonishment and pure hope. "Are you the man from Mommy's special box? She has pictures of you and papers with your name on them. Mommy says you're my daddy, but you're too busy for us." The world seemed to spin around Carlos. "What did you say?" he whispered, his white knuckles gripping the phone. "Are you really my daddy?" Carol asked, her voice suddenly hopeful. "Are you going to come see us now? Mommy says you're the smartest, richest man in Sao Paulo. She says I have your eyes." Carlos's hand shook uncontrollably. He tried to sit up, but missed the chair, falling to his knees on the plush carpet, his mind in total denial. This isn't possible," he muttered, more to himself than to the child. "I can't have children." In the stunned silence of Carlos's office, the creak of a door echoed in the background of the call, a sound of apprehension. "Carol, who are you talking to?" A woman's voice, tense and charged with an emotion that Carlos could not immediately decipher, cut through the air. And then little Carol's innocent words, a cry of hope that became a turning point. "It's my daddy, Mommy. He called us." The dull thud of the phone falling marked the exact moment when Carlos's world collapsed. He heard a stifled sigh, followed by Carla's voice, now understood, almost a lament. "Mr. Almeida, I can explain everything." But Carlos could not answer. Tears, previously unthinkable for the ruthless businessman, ran freely down his face. Years of certainties, of a meticulously planned life, crumbled around him, revealing an emptiness he never knew existed. After the phone call that turned his life upside down, Carlos remained motionless, a monument of despair and confusion. The memory, like an overwhelming wave, came back with brutal force. A doctor's office, 15 years ago. The cold and definitive words of the specialist, confirming his sterility after a childhood illness, echoed in his mind like a sentence. That diagnosis had shaped the man he had become, a man who believed he was incapable of having a family. Suddenly, the beeping of his computer brought him back to reality. An email from Marcia, Carlos Santos' complete file. With trembling hands, Carlos nervously clicked through the documents, his heart pounding, until his eyes found a simple note, but one that carried an immense weight. 6-year-old daughter. With each line read, with each click, the truth began to unfold, promising a revolution in everything he knew. Driven by a force he couldn't understand, Carlos immersed himself in a search for Carlos Santos on social media. Each profile, each photo, seemed to carry an unsettling familiarity, a ghost from a distant past he didn't even remember having. And then his breath caught. There she was, Carla, her face marked by time but still with a familiar glow. And next to her, in several photos, little Carol, a little girl with her own steel blue eyes, a copy of the Almeida's characteristic dimple. Carlos's mind raced wildly back 7 years to a technology conference in Rio de Janeiro. 3 days of networking, one night of unexpected connection with a brilliant software developer, Carla, a passionate, intense weekend before he returned to Sao Paulo, diving back into his business life. She had tried to contact him afterward, but his assistant, following standard protocol, blocked her calls. A mistake, a colossal mistake. At that moment, he realized the magnitude of what he had ignored, of what he had missed. A wave of urgency, something he had never felt before, washed over Carlos. It wasn't the rush of a deal or an important meeting. It was the rush of the soul. "Call my driver," he shouted into the intercom, his voice filled with new determination. Minutes later, the billionaire was making his way through the chaotic traffic of Sao Paulo, each stoplight seeming like an eternity. His destination, Carla's address in the East Zone. The neighborhood was a stark contrast to his world of luxurious penthouses. Here, children played on cracked sidewalks while tired adults returned from long days of work. It was a real, vibrant world, and he was going to find a part of himself he hadn't even known existed. He found the apartment building, a worn-down brick structure with peeling paint. He took a deep breath, nervousness tightening his stomach, and rang the doorbell of apartment 4B. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any stories like this. Light, quick footsteps approached the door. Carlos's heart was beating like a drum. The door opened only partially, held by a chain, revealing a piece of a woman's face. Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and something like fear. "Mr. Almeida." Carla's voice was almost a whisper, filled with an emotion she had kept to herself for years. "We need to talk," Carlos said, his voice, which had previously commanded respect in meeting rooms, now wavered. The door closed for a moment, the chain rattled, and then opened completely. Carlos Santos was there, before him. Older than in his hazy memory, her face marked by the weariness of a life of struggle, but still possessing a resilient beauty, a strength he had not noticed before. And, peering out from behind her, that little face, with those unmistakable blue eyes. "Are you really my daddy?" Carol asked, and the innocence of those words pierced Carlos's soul, opening old wounds and planting a new and painful hope. The apartment was small, yes, but with every glance Carlos could see a soul, a home. It was meticulously organized, a reflection of Carla's love and care. Books were piled on a side table, suggesting that Carla, even in the midst of difficulties, sought knowledge, studied. In a corner, a makeshift office, a laptop surrounded by programming manuals, revealing the silent struggle of a mother searching for a future. "Carol, dear," Carla said, her voice gentle but with a firmness that Carlos began to admire. "You can go play in your room while I talk to Mr. Almeida." The girl looked between them, her childish eyes curious, before reluctantly withdrawing, leaving the two adults face to face for the confrontation that would change their lives forever. "She's my daughter." Carlos's question hung in the air, raw and charged with an almost desperate hope, but also with a disbelief that still fought. Carla, the woman in front of him, met his gaze without wavering, and the answer came, simple and definitive, yes. Carlos's disbelief bubbled over. "That's impossible. I can't have children." "Medical fact," he exclaimed, clinging to the only certainty he had. Carla laughed, a bitter laugh that contained years of pain and frustration. "Apparently, medical facts can be wrong," she replied, and the sentence hit him like a blow. "You never told me," he accused her, his voice breaking. Carla's expression hardened slightly, the pain turning into an unshakable firmness. "I tried. For months. Your assistant blocked my calls. My emails went unanswered. Eventually, I got the message." In every word she said, Carlos felt the weight of what he had lost, of the truth that had been denied to them both for so long. Carlos paced the small living room, each step filled with a restlessness he couldn't contain. The need for proof, for scientific certainty, was almost desperate. "I need a DNA test," he said, the words sounding more like a demand than a request. "Great," Carla replied, and her tone was dignified enough to surprise Carlos. She crossed her arms, her posture straight and unshakable. "I have nothing to hide. I've never asked you for anything, Carlos. We can manage on our own." An echo of her luxurious life made Carlos look around the humble apartment, and the words came out, almost without meaning to, tinged with a condescension he didn't notice, clearly. Carla's expression hardened. "We don't need your money or your judgment," she replied, her voice firm. "Carol asked about you, so I told her the truth, that her father was successful, but he wasn't part of our lives. I never said anything bad about you." In each sentence of hers, the strength of a woman who stood up for herself, protecting and loving her daughter, was revealed, confronting the billionaire with the reality of his own superficiality. It was then that something unexpected caught Carlos's attention. On the apartment's simple refrigerator, a childish drawing, vibrant in its colors, called out to him. It was a family, a small figure labeled Miatala One Om, and a third figure with a crown and dollar signs labeled, in a child's hesitant handwriting, Daddy in SP. At that moment, something cracked in Carlos's chest. It wasn't anger nor doubt. It was an emotion so pure and overwhelming that he couldn't name it. The coldness of his numbers and business seemed insignificant in the face of that simple drawing, that desire so genuine. 3 days later, the agonizing wait for the results of the DNA test came to an end, and the truth finally imposed itself. Carol was his daughter. A medical fact denied, a lifetime of certainties undone, and in its place, the promise of a love he never knew he could feel. In the weeks following that devastating revelation, Carlos, the ruthless billionaire, began to build a new foundation for his life. He established regular visits, and the park, previously just a backdrop in his busy life, became the stage for his reunions with Carol. There, among the swings and slides, a pure and unprecedented bond blossomed, filling voids he had never known existed. But life, with its unpredictability, had yet another test. During one of these encounters in the park, Carol's laughter fell silent. She fainted. The scene dissolved into the emergency room of a hospital, the agonizing wait, the smell of antiseptic in the air. The doctors, with their serious voices, diagnosed her. Alport syndrome, a genetic kidney condition that would require a transplant. Genetics? Carlos interrupted the doctor, his heart racing. You mean she inherited it? Dr. Ferreira nodded, confirming. This particular condition is hereditary. At that moment, a new layer of mystery and pain opened up, leading Carlos to an even deeper and more shocking truth about his past. Driven by an urgency that now came from love, Carlos didn't hesitate. He hired a private investigator to dig into every detail of his medical history, seeking answers to Carol's genetic enigma. And the discovery was devastating, a betrayal that echoed his own past. His father, the man he so admired, had bribed doctors to lie about his infertility. A cruel farce, created so that Carlos would focus solely on business, without distractions like family. But the biggest shock was yet to come, a twist of fate that seemed woven by the hands of something divine. Carlos not only had an undiagnosed kidney anomaly, the same one that caused Carol's Alport syndrome, but this made him, incredibly, the perfect donor for his own daughter. In that moment, the pain of his father's line mixed with overwhelming gratitude. He wasn't just Carol's father. He was her hope, her miracle. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any stories like this. Months later, Carlos's hoarse voice broke the silence of the post-surgical recovery. His first and only concern was Carol. Is she okay? He whispered, the physical pain insignificant compared to his anxiety for his daughter's well-being. Dr. Ferreira, with a reassuring smile, assured him, her kidney is working perfectly. During the long and delicate recovery, a new chapter opened. Carlos, the billionaire who had previously been averse to closeness, moved temporarily into Carla's small apartment, a home that became a haven of healing and intimacy. There, between caring for Carol and the silent nights, Carlos and Carla rediscovered each other. The woman who had raised her daughter alone, without bitterness, who worked as a freelancer to support the family while studying programming. The strength and beauty of her soul revealed itself every day. That connection lost 7 years ago, suffocated by life and deceit, blossomed again, more mature, more true. One night, as they watched Carol sleep peacefully, a moment of rare intimacy passed between them. Carla, with a gentle smile and a look that seemed to see into Carlos's soul, said, "You are not the man I met 7 years ago, nor the one who called 6 months ago, ready to reprimand you." Her words were not an accusation, but a profound recognition of the change that had taken place in him. Carlos, previously so proud and inflexible, did not hesitate to admit, with a humility he never thought he would possess, "She changed me. You too changed me." In that moment, the man who had built an empire of concrete and technology understood that the true treasure was there in the simplicity of that apartment, in the love that transformed him from the inside out. 1 year later, the same park, the one that had been the scene of despair, now witnessed a new beginning. The sun was shining, the children were playing, and life, in its fullness, celebrated the chance to start over. Carlos, the man who had previously measured success only in numbers and business achievements, knelt before Carla, a ring shining on his hand. "Carlos Santos," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "will you marry me?" And then, the voice that had changed his world 7 months earlier echoed joyfully from the slide, surrounded by curious children. "Say yes, Mommy." In that moment, Carlos understood that true success was not measured in bank accounts or market shares. Success was hearing his daughter laugh. It was having someone to share fears and victories with. It was building something much bigger than a company, a family. He thought of the Carlos of old, the man who believed that vulnerability was weakness, that family was a distraction. How wrong he was. The greatest achievement of his life didn't come from a multi-million-dollar contract or an audacious merger. It came from an angry phone call, answered by a child who, in his innocence, simply wanted to meet his father. Sometimes, my dear friends, what we try hardest to avoid is exactly what our soul needs to find. This story shows us that love does not diminish our power. It multiplies it in ways we never imagined possible. It heals old wounds, repairs injustices, and reconnects hearts that seemed lost. It is never too late to start over, to open ourselves to the unexpected, to let life, in its wisdom, guide us to our true happy ending. If this story touched your heart, made you smile, sigh, and believe that the impossible can be restored, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that celebrate the power of love and show how small moments can transform entire lives. Share it with someone who needs to remember that, even after pain, the purest happiness can be waiting, ready to blossom. If this story touched your heart and made you believe that love always finds a way, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories, and share with someone who needs a little hope today. And of course, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching us from? We can't wait to see you in the next thrills.